Welcome to our live training session. We're going to take a look at how to calibrate and tune a Honda Civic Si using a Link G4x plug-and-play system. Let's jump into some details about our vehicle. We're going to find that this vehicle has been extensively modified. So we have a K24 engine swap paired to a 6-speed transmission. Now our Honda K24 engine has been rebuilt with aftermarket internals. We have 12.5:1 compression pistons that are forged along with forged connecting rods. We have upgraded aftermarket valve train in the cylinder head, OEM camshafts, 50-degree VTC gear, and a Type S oil pump. Now, on the intake side of things, we have a Skunk 2 Ultra Street intake manifold that's also been highly modified. We've converted it over to drive-by-wire with a Bosch 68mm throttle body. In addition to this, we have two sets of injectors. We've added a secondary set of injectors or a secondary fuel rail to the intake manifold. The primary set of injectors are 440 RDX CC injectors, and then the secondary set of injectors is 880 CC Bosch injectors. Now, as we're talking about our fuel system, we've converted it over to a return style system with an external fuel pressure regulator from Radium Engineering. We also have a flex fuel sensor mounted in our fuel system, and we're using a DW300C fuel pump. We plan on running flex fuel on this vehicle, so we're going to be going through that in this tutorial. Moving on to the exhaust side of things, we have a custom fabricated turbo kit for our vehicle with a low mounted turbocharger. So we have a tubular manifold, a 44mm wastegate, we have a GTX 3071 Gen 2 turbocharger, 3-inch downpipe with a recirculated dump tube to a 2.5-inch exhaust. Now we also have within the turbo kit a air-to-liquid intercooler system using a Garrett air-to-liquid core. We have a large front mount heat exchanger, a Bosch water pump to circulate the water through the system, and we also have a Tile 50mm blow-off valve. So in addition to all of this, we're going to be doing boost control with our tutorials here. So we have a 3-port boost solenoid, we have a 3-bar map sensor, we have an air temp sensor that's measuring our post intercooler temps, so what's coming out of the intercooler. We have an air temp sensor that's measuring our water temperature in our air to liquid system. We also have a air temp sensor that's measuring our pre-air temperatures that's coming out of the turbocharger, so we can measure the efficiency of the intercooler and make sure everything's in order. In addition to this, we have a fuel pressure sensor and we have an oil pressure sensor along with a 12-position trim pot, and we've integrated the OEM cruise control functions. So we're going to actually make this vehicle be able to do cruise control with the drive-by-wire conversion, and we're going to show that through all the tutorials here. So we have a ton of setup, configuration, calibrating, and tuning work that we need to do here. This is going to be a 12-part tutorials, so we're going to see a lot of different information on how to do the calibrating and tuning process, taking a look at everything from fuel tuning, spark timing tuning, boost control tuning, flex fuel tuning, cruise control tuning, knock control setup and tuning. We have a ton of things to cover, so let's jump in here to our first tutorial so we can take a look at doing a base map creation process.
Welcome to our live training session. We just went over all the details of our vehicle. Let's jump in and create our base calibration file so we can get our engine fired up and begin our tuning process. Now, the very first thing we're going to take a look at is going to be setting up the inputs and outputs in this first training module. So we're going to go through setting more of the basic important details that we have to make sure are right in the calibration file so that the engine that we're calibrating and tuning will fire off and it gives us a good starting point. So what we're going to do here is begin with a plug and play base file from Link for the Honda K series engine I'm working with. And I'm actually working with a G4x plug and play box for a Honda K series. So we're going to start off with that base file and modify from there. And we have a lot of setup and configuration details. So let's jump in and take a look within the PC Link software that I have open on my laptop screen, how we're going to set things up. Now, I do want to go through a couple basic things here. I am using the supplied course layout that's found in our course packet. You definitely want to be following along and using that. It makes navigating the software substantially easier. So that's the first thing we have open here on my screen. We can see that we're going to be beginning the tutorial in the basics window or tab right here. So we can see the very leftmost tab in my layout is called basics. Now inside of this tab, we have all of the basic information details for programming that we have to make sure is right. So what we're actually going to be focusing on is going through the basics right here, going into the cam and crank page next, then looking at the analog inputs, the digital inputs, and then the outputs. We're also going to be skipping towards the end of the tutorial to the drive-by-wire page to set up those details for the drive-by-wire throttle control. I have converted this vehicle over to drive-by-wire from cable. Gives me a lot better control, but we have to set up a lot of details with that. So that's what we're going to be focusing on in this training module. All right, let's jump in to my laptop right now. I have it open. I am connected to the vehicle, so I have the ignition powered on. I have my laptop plugged into the G4x plug-and-play box, so we're ready to start this process. Now, you don't need to build your base file, connect it directly to the vehicle. You could do it sitting at your kitchen table or on your couch, but I like to do this when I'm in front of the vehicle whenever possible, so I can go through setting up our sensor details and making sure that things are in order as I'm programming them. Otherwise, I have to do it later as I get online with the ECU. Let's say I've created the base file offline, sitting on my couch, and I have to go to the vehicle and then test everything out. Just eliminates that step, but it's really up to you how you want to do this. All right, jumping in here, what we're going to do, again, basics page, upper left-hand corner right here, basics. We're going to go through our configuration details. Now, a lot of this has been set up already because this is a plug-and-play base file for a Honda K series using this plug-and-play box, but there are a lot of details that aren't going to be set up for us. So we want to go through every detail as much as possible. Okay, so configuration here. Let's start off with our cylinders. So the number of cylinders, 4 cylinders, 4-cylinder engine. Engine type, 4-stroke, that's correct. Connection speed should be set to fast. We do have some other options here, slow or fast. I'm going to keep it on fast because I don't have any communication problems between my actual G4X box and my laptop. If you're having some communication problems, you could try the slow connection. That may resolve some things. I'll keep it on fast. The custom TDC we can keep off because we're not needing that option. If we turn this on, it gives us the ability to program where the top dead center would be for an engine that's not going to be a standard, let's say 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder inline engine or a typical V8 engine. So I don't need to work with this, but that option is there. All right, serial port mode 1 and 2. Right now, if we click on this, this is set currently to the Integra DC5 immobilizer for the port 1 serial out. That's going to control the immobilizer function on the car, disable it. And then we have our serial port 2 mode. This is going to be controlling the dash, so the dash functionality. Now, the dashes on the RSX and the EP3 actually have a CAN bus multiplexer type of output. Actually, I think it's multiplexer, where the coolant gauge won't work unless the multiplexer function is actually operational. So this takes care of that and makes sure the other dash functions on an RSX or an EP3 actually function. So we'll leave it on the default settings because, again, this is a plug-and-play application, so everything here should work, and we'll use the default settings here. All right, let's click cancel there. All right, the firing order is next. Now, Honda engines, or typically 4-cylinder engines in general, but Honda engines specifically, will be a 1-3-4-2 firing order, and that's what we find here. So 1-3-4-2, that looks good, so we can move on. Now, the next thing we have here under fuel main, this specifies our injection mode. We see right here is sequential. Now, typically, most engines you'll be tuning will be sequential, especially for a Honda engine here. In my case, I have to change this. It's not going to be sequential, but it's going to be sequential staged because we actually have 8 injectors on this engine. We've talked about that beginning of this tutorial. We have a set of RDX 410cc injectors as our primary injectors that will start, idle, and cruise on. And then we have a set of Bosch 880, actually Link supplied injectors. Link, they're sold by Link. So these are an 880cc injector at 3-bar base fuel pressure, or I believe they're 1000 cc at 4-bar pressure, but either way, they're Bosch 880 cc injectors. So I'm staging them, meaning I'm not having both set of injectors come on right when I'm idling or starting and running the car. I only want to bring in the second set of injectors as I'm getting into boost. So that's a key here. So that's where we want to go ahead and stage the secondary set of injectors. So the Bosch injectors will come in only when we're getting enough load or boost. It's pretty simple to set this up. We'll also be taking a look at that in this tutorial. I believe there should be enough time to go through some of those details. So we want to select this option here. So normally, if you have a single set of injectors, you'll choose sequential for a Honda engine because Honda engines have a cam sync and allows a sequential operation to function. So say the sequential stage in my case is going to be what I choose here. So click OK. It says, do you want to clear secondary injection staging table to all zeros? Yes, we want to do that. We'll go through that next. And then general purpose output 6 has been turned off. This general purpose 6 in their base file must have been assigned to one of the 4 additional injector outputs. So my injectors here, injector outputs 1 through 4, are set up for the primary injection control for the normal 4 injectors. Injectors 5, 6, 7, and 8 have been wired to the secondary set of injectors. So it's telling me in the base map, at least this default base map from Link, that the general purpose output 6 must have been assigned to one of those 4 additional injector outputs. And that's okay, we don't want that functional, so we'll say click off here, and that's fine. The other thing it's going to warn me here is use start of injection for injection timing if fuel cuts with sequential stage. Now we're going to be using, for the rev limiter strategy, which we're setting up in the next tutorial, we'll be using a spark cut type of ignition cut for the rev limiter, so we're not going to be using fuel cut. So I don't need to worry about start of injection for the injection timing. We're going to be using end of injection for injection timing. But this message will pop up, so let's click OK here. Next thing, fuel equation mode. Now, there's some options here. Traditional, model, multi-fuel. Traditional is going to be an injection pulse width based strategy. What that means is the numbers in the fuel table and the way that the injection is going to work, it's going to essentially look at the injector latency and the numbers from the fuel table and a master fuel trim value or a fuel trim value. And that will dictate what your injector pulse width is going to be delivered to the engine, or the amount of fuel you're going to be spraying into the engine. It's a really simple strategy and it works well for any engine. Now, if you want to be a little bit more complex and have some math modeling going on and have a better overall fueling strategy, the modeled or the modeled multi-fuel is my go-to. The modeled or modeled multi-fuel can also be known as volumetric efficiency based tuning. So if you're familiar with tuning Motec, Mtron, Haltech,